Good morning, everybody. It's Marty the JavaScript Party. I'm my buddy Rhett here. It is a cold, cold Monday morning here in Marietta, Georgia. It is the 12th of January, the very first day of Georgia's legislative session. So should be I think I've done most of the work that I'm supposed to do. There's a couple of things in the work that that I was responsible for that until showtime, you don't know if it works. So today I'll be heavily monitoring a lot of aspects of what's going on with the legislation to make sure that any of the code that I've written will does works as hoped. So that should be an exciting day for me. There's also supposed to be a couple protests down there by this Georgia State House today, so that should be interesting. So I suspect um, everything should be pretty chill. Um, but anyways, the thing I'm working on here is that it's strange to me. I ran into an issue that I run into all the time in Angular, and it drives me nuts, and I never understood it at all. Like even the slightest bit, it would I would come upon this problem, and like no matter how much I dug in, every application I've worked on was so complex that there was no way to sort of tease out what the actual problem is. So ran into it here, and this is actually I've run into this project a couple times. I think that's why I did a crappy job with my implementation of animation services of animations and because I ran into this problem, and the problem is that I if I inside of this mesh service, if I import animation service, I don't get a the transpiler can't recognize that this is a problem, right? So if I hit save and I just import it, I think all I have to do is import it and it breaks. um yeah, see, it's broken, and the only reason I could tell, it kind of looks right except for that this icon isn't there. And then if we hit F12, we see that we have this error, and it says this ng0200 circular dependency detected. And like I haven't even used anything. Like literally all I did was um do it. Was what am I trying to say? All I did was just import it. I don't even think I Oh no, I imported it and I injected it. So apparently, and like I'm kind of thinking out loud. So, okay, so let's just take one step back. You may be wondering, one of the two or three people that watch this video and that make it to, what are we, 3 minutes in? Most people do not make it 3 minutes in. Um, but that have made it to this point, you may be wondering, like, okay, so what? Like, it's a weird ass bug, move on. Um, but the thing is like, I kind of like am trying to figure out like why I'm willing to just stop everything and go on a full detour mode to um to figure this out and to try to understand this better. Not even figure it out, but to just try to understand it better. And I kind of was thinking about it this morning. I was thinking about like how my mom's boyfriend once told me that in the United States we have this really massive um highway system. And in our highway system, he used to be a truck driver and like a big rig semi truck driver. I think he spent like 20 or 30 years doing that. And one of the things that I had never noticed before, I'd been driving on the highways for decades. I'd never noticed before, but like all highways that go north and south all have an odd number. So if it's like Highway 5, then it's going north to south. But if it's Highway 6, it's going east to west. And he mentioned that to us like when it was a big group of us in the car, and he mentioned it, and we were all like, "Oh my gosh." And that has made a huge difference because sometimes when you come up to like an exit and there's like five or six highways, like it's a node where a bunch of different highways can go a bunch of different directions. And if you know that and you know the direction you're going in, you can make a better guess, right? So like oh, okay, I'm in Atlanta, I'm trying to get to New York, and now I've hit a highway, and I've hit like four highways, and one of them is like Highway 80, but then the other one is Highway 72, and then one of them is Highway 5. Which one is the most likely to be going the direction I want to go in? Right? Like it's a little bit more information, but you don't really need that information. But it makes a big difference. Another thing he mentioned once was like when you're driving and you see like you want to figure out which side of the car your gas pump is on. There's actually a little indicator on your console. Generally, wherever your speed, the thing that tells you your speed, there's like a little arrow, and it has a little, usually has a picture of gas, some sort of icon that indicates gas, and it points in a direction, and that's the side. Been driving my whole life, put gas in thousands and thousands of times, never noticed that until he pointed it out. Changed everything for me. Like now, whenever I pull up, I don't have to try to, especially if it's a car I'm not used to, I don't have to sit there and go, oh, which side is the gas tank on? I can just go look. I can look down at the board and find that. So I feel like we're going to run into some things like that. Some things in this, searching in this and understanding this, that are going to make, that's just going to change my coding experience for the better for a long time. But we see, now that I look at this again, we see that it's in this thing called untracked chunk, which is, gosh, that's just such an unusual, like such an unuseful name. Um, but inside of our untracked chunk, we have something called a cyclic dependency error, and that's also inside of untracked trunk. So basically, we have some function that apparently is called create runtime error. So that's obviously not the source of this problem. And then we have cyclic dependency error. That seems like, again, kind of like create runtime error. It's not actual error. This is just code to handle the error, which this is not a very good way of handling this error. Now, it looks like R3 injector hydrate is where things go wrong. And then there's like an R3 injector get. So apparently it was able to get the injector, the R3 to injector get was able to get things. And then they have R3 injector retrieve. So I don't know what the difference between get and retrieve are, but and then this one is called injector only. Inject, injector only. Inject, injector only. Um, this apparently my guess is that the very first thing it does is it injects itself. The injector injects itself, and then after that it goes to retrieve. It would be kind of, yeah. Oh, and I guess it's trying to retrieve the animation service. Inject to instance member initializer. So there's something called an instance member initializer. Um, in this Angular runtime. I don't know what this is, but it's using my code that I wrote called mesh service and on line 35. So right there, right here, when it goes to do this, it hits that line of code, and in runtime, but not in compile time, it chokes. And then this is when it goes to create a new session service. So when it goes to create a new service, it starts setting up an injector, apparently. I don't really understand the whole injection thing. One day I probably should just watch 1,000 videos on YouTube about the injector to try to understand what's going on. But apparently when the injector gets across here, it chokes. Now, I believe if I go to the animation service, so this is the mesh, ST mesh service. When I go to the animation service, let's go to definition. We install the ST mesh service. And for some reason that breaks, but you see that like we have mesh service here. Oh, but I bet you the mesh service, let's go to the mesh service. Mesh service never injects the Angular. So the sort of narrative that I've created for myself that explains this that could be wrong is that you can't have two services inject each other, which I don't see any like when I just imagine reality in my head, I can't see any reason why two services shouldn't be able to inject each other. But apparently you can't. And that's my story. That's the narrative I've created. That narrative. So what I have done is one of two things. Either I've increased my understanding of how things work, or I've become completely and utterly um, where is it when you kind of make up your own reality? Um, but I'm just completely and totally lost. So those are the two choices. Either I've become less lost or become completely lost. So I have to figure that out. I have to try to figure out some code, something I can do in order to sort of um, either validate my new belief system, which my new belief system is that you can't take two for root services. So I think one of the things that's really important to keep in mind here is if I go to this implementation, oh, it won't only let me do this if I'm like this. If I go to this implementation, like, um, see, this provided in root, I think is an important part the of the issue, right? Like when it's provided in root, I believe, and again, this is pure, like I would say that this is just like not even like something that I really believe. It's just sort of a story that makes it a little easier to understand what is going on. Let's see. So I think that's like a really important thing. I think this might be an important piece of the puzzle is if it's provided in the root. So, and then, who knows? Because yeah, I don't know. So I think what I need to do in order to oh yeah, either I'm completely and utterly delusional or I'm completely based in reality. And I don't know. There's no way for me to tell from where I'm at right now if I'm based in reality or if I'm completely delusional. So what I need to do is test it. I need to figure out a way to test this new belief system I have. And this belief system is that two services that are in the root cannot inject each other. Then once we've established that that's true, then we can probably dig deeper. It would make more sense to dig deeper into why and if there's any sort of idea or any sort of accommodation that can be made to make this work um, in a way that, you know, like there's a problem and I know that there's a problem and I don't want to just do some quick workaround. I want to actually understand the problem and see if I could. Um, okay, so I actually had run into this. All rules are broken in this service because it interacts directly with ST stuff and 3 stuff. Injecting the ST render server causes a browser. Okay, so yeah, so I had the problem with this with injecting the ST render service as well. Try injecting after drawing language is removed from app. So yeah, so here's another example of the exact same problem. So I'm just doing this apparently. So I'm just going to go to implementation. Oh, yeah. So go to implementation. Oh, I didn't save it. Um, and this is one of those funny ones those bugs that will just show up uh, out of nowhere all the time. So this is the renderer service, and the renderer service brings in the animation service, entities, animations, animation service. And then when I try to bring the renderer service in, right? So I've been running into this problem. I just didn't quite recognize it, and I didn't have the sort of mental wherewithal to like go, okay, I'm going to figure this out. Um, but I do think at this point, I think you're sort of limited on the size of your application. Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. This is one of those funny ones that will break when you. So I'm going to kill this. Um, will break when you like after a merge. Like everything works perfect. Like my code all works perfect. I upload it somewhere. I mean, I commit it and check it in. Someone else's code works perfect. They commit it, check it in, and now nobody's code works anymore. It like all compiles, so it gets through all the tests. Like the CI/CD is compiling, everything goes good, and then it gets to production and it breaks. Like that is sort of a reality that you run into all the time when you work on a group of people. So I'm seeing if I have a temp already. QRST, I do not. Okay, so I don't think I have anything that's sort of. So I'm going to make in my tech directory. I'm going to make a directory called temp. And inside of here, I'm going to go into temp, cd temp. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say code dot. And what that is going to do for me is that's going to, and it may or may not work for you. It just depends on how it depends on a lot of things, but I think that the main thing is that it depends on how you've set up your paths or how your paths were set up while you were installing. Um, So for me, like I think when I installed Visual Studio Code, I don't know if it was something I selected or how, but um, I was able to update my path. I mean, my path, I think in Windows um, knows that has tied code dot to this Visual Studio Code, and that's not really my domain. But so we go in here and temp, and let's just not assume that this is going to be the only like in all likelihood, at the end of this, we're just going to delete temp completely. But if we don't, so this is cyclic. Make dir cyclic click investigation. So now we've created a new cyclic investigation folder. So I'm going to say code dot. Oh, I need to log off here in a second. So the very first thing I'm going to do is let's go ahead and kill this one. Go back to here. Close this up. And basically, all I want to do is create a little Angular application. And then in that Angular application, the idea is that I want um, to um, in that Angular is to create two services. And in those two services, I just want to, it'll automatically build an app component, and then I just want to inject the two services into each other and see if it breaks right off the bat. And that will prove to me that you just can't inject two services into each other. Um, and that will be good. So first thing to do is type in npm init-y, and that'll just kind of set me up for an npm. And the only thing you'll really see is basically an empty package file will show up here on here. And it does, for some reason, it takes a little bit. I don't really know why, because it's not doing a whole lot. I think I need this welcome anymore. Sometimes it's super fast and sometimes it's slow. Okay, so now we have our package.json. So now we want to do an npm install at Angular. And I did talk to ChatGPT about this. The hardest thing with ChatGPT to me is like when you believe something, it like wants to get along. It wants to so it will, even if you believe something that's completely wrong, ha, it has, I think, a very high chance of validating your wrong belief. I think that's one of the problems. And the reason it does that is, I think, this is just me guessing, but I think the reason it does that is because when you, I think that we think that there's a way to do things, but really there isn't a way to do things. There's usually like a lot of ways to do things and then like a lot more. So let's say there might be 5 ways to do something and there's like 500 million ways to not do it. And so a lot of times Angular might think, I mean, ChatGPT might think that you have a way of doing something, I think, and that you know it works, and um, and it doesn't, and so it validates you. All right, so now we have the Angular CLI. It is 9:01, so I got to go. Happy coding, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Tomorrow we will create the actual Angular application. Bye.